Hello and welcome. Thanks for making it to today's webinar. This is the final Enterprise for Education webinar from us here at Amplified IT. And then we've got more webinars continuing in this series on some other topics. Today's topic is recent updates to G Suite Enterprise for Education and what's coming next. So we're going to take you through some of the changes that have happened the last 2 or 3 months, and then give you a little bit of a peek into what's coming, hopefully in the future, in the next month to 3 on the roadmap, and some things you're going to see with Enterprise and with Google Meet, of course, as well. We've got a short URL here for the slide deck for you to open and follow along with that. It's ampd.it/GSEfE-updates. And you will see that repeated in the top right corner of the screen on most of the slides in the deck as we go along. I believe that's going to be posted in the chat for you as well as you view this webinar. So you'll see it in a few places, and it should be there for you. And welcome again. My name's Tom Woods. I'm our Google for Education training lead here at Amplified IT. And I've been in educational IT technology for about 20 years and in just general IT technology for almost 30. And I've been with Amplified IT for 6 years now. If you're not familiar with us, Amplified IT, we're partnering with Google on these sessions, and we're a IT-focused Google for Education consultancy company based out of Norfolk, Virginia. We work with K-12 schools and higher education institutions all around North America, everybody from small independent schools all the way up to some of the largest districts in North America. Almost 5,000 different schools and districts have worked with us in the last few years, improving their use of G Suite for Education and working on best practices. And that's really what we focus on, making sure the IT teams, yourselves that administer and manage the admin console and G Suite, have it set up for success, have it set up for educational best practices, for safety and security, etc. We've got a lot of different services we offer at Amplified IT, so if you'd like to check us out after this webinar, please do so. Everything from auditing your entire G Suite for Education domain top to bottom, to doing migrations, to doing provisioning services and help. And I always seem to click on the wrong thing on the slide. There's too many links on it. We have technical PD and training, including some IT-based, educationally focused certifications. And we've got our Amplified Labs tools to help fill in those gaps and make your lives easier, save you hours and hours of time getting large activities and bulk operations done, including managing classroom and managing Chromebooks. One thing we want to mention as well is today's recording, as well as all of the previous recordings, whether they're the ones with us here at Amplified IT or Fried Technologies, all the things being shown throughout this series are accessible through the website where you registered. So if you want to go back to there, we've got a link here on the slide deck to help you find that. Beside the Home tab, as you can see on the screenshot, there is a Recordings and Resources area. You can go back to there to find the recordings from previous sessions if you want to refer back to them, or even register and sign up for some of the upcoming sessions that are still to come, or anything that you've missed. And if it's a previous one, then you'll have access to those recordings through that. So that's a good URL there to keep close by. And up in the top right corner, just repeating that today's slide deck, GSEfE-updates is repeated there, as well as the link to the registration and resources pages. Today's agenda, super simple. We're going to take you through recent updates to G Suite Enterprise for Education, along with some non-enterprise updates to Google Meet, because it all kind of goes together in a lot of ways, and it's top of everyone's mind right now, especially with remote learning going on this year. And then we'll take a look at what's next and what's coming on our journey here with Enterprise for Education. And we'll leave some time at the end for some question and answers for you as well. Devin Regis from Google is kind enough to be in the chat, monitoring your questions, answering your questions. She'll take some of those and bring them through to me during the session here and at the Q&A period at the end, and we'll try to get them answered for you as best we can. All right, so we'll go through some of the recent changes to Enterprise for Education. A lot of these are going to focus on Google Meet. That has been the focus of the Google team and engineers as they work to make sure that Google Meet and all the accompanying tools meet the needs of education for remote learning in the time that we're in right now. So a lot of the focus has been on improving Google Meet and making it a service that you can rely on to facilitate that remote learning for sure. This is a big one. So with Enterprise for Education, if your teachers have enterprise licenses and then they're running Google Meets with students, they will receive an attendance report. So if there's 5 or more participants in the Google Meet, a teacher and a handful of students for sure, then they will be emailed this upon the conclusion of the meet, when the teacher has made sure that everyone has left the Meet session and they have exited the Meet session themselves. Then shortly afterwards, this CSV file is going to be emailed to the teacher. And we've got a great screenshot of it here. It's the easiest way to show it to you, where you'll get a rundown of the participants, whether they be students or not. Anyone that was in that Google Meet session, 5 people or more. Really interesting also having some information here on the duration, how long potentially that person was in the Google Meet session for, when they joined, when they exited. So not just an attendance of whether they were there or not, but a teacher being able to gauge the length of time a student stayed in there, maybe the engagement level. If it's a large class, maybe it's hard to keep track of who connected and disconnected and when they left, and did all the students stay around till the end of the lesson. Lots of great feedback and information there that'll help you with that. There's a link here at the bottom of this slide and all these slides that will take you to the relevant information, the Google blog post updates that'll explain this in a lot more detail for sure. But that's the gist of the attendance. It's automatic. It's nothing anyone has to turn on. Your teachers don't have to do anything. If there's 5 or more people, that will be emailed to them upon the conclusion of the meet automatically. Next feature for Enterprise is question and answer and polls for Meet. So there's 2 pieces here. These were some of the most requested features from teachers as Google collected that feedback earlier this year. Q&A and polls are super easy to use. I'm going to maybe jump over and we'll demonstrate that real quickly right now and where those are, just so you can see them if you haven't seen that yet. So we'll go over here to a Enterprise logged in user or teacher. I'm just going to start up a Google Meet session here quickly, and we'll see that start up, and I'll not stare at myself, and we'll open that up, and we're in the Google Meet. And it's a matter of going up here to the top right corner where the extra activities tab is. And if you're an Enterprise user, that's what you will see as a teacher or an initiator of the Google Meet session. And we've got polls and Q&A here. So these are 2 new pieces. Polls is fairly simple to use for sure. We can just come into here, we can start a poll, and we can put in some information here and have some options. Now we have a couple choices here. We can build multiple of these and save them and not produce them or send them to the users, to the participants of the Meet until we're ready. We can then come back to this panel and send those as appropriate, maybe during the lesson at certain times, or we can launch them immediately right now. If we just save those, they go into a format like this, where we can still go back and edit them, change the questions, change the answers. When we're ready, we can launch and we can stack up multiple of these. The other really neat thing about polls that we just realized the other day in doing a little bit more testing is if you were, as the teacher, the initiator of this Meet, to leave this Meet session and rejoin that same Meet URL or rejoin that same nickname Meet, these saved polls are still there. So they persist leaving the Meet and coming back in. So you could prepare them early in the morning and then pop back in an hour or 2 later when the actual students or participants are there, and they will be there for you, which is a really great feature. The question and answer piece is right here. It's a matter of coming in as the teacher or the moderator and turning this on. And now there is a prompt similar to this one here at the bottom that your participants, your students are going to see, prompting them to ask the facilitator, the teacher, questions. And then those questions will come in and show up on this panel here. There's lots of different options here for sorting them, for filtering them by the ones you haven't answered yet, the ones you have answered, or the ones that you want to hide. And you can flip this on or off throughout the lesson as needed and have that close by and close at hand here. And that's Q&A. Great. Another link here at the bottom, again, to go dive deeper and find out more information. This is the way a vote tabulates without having to do a complex demonstration for you. You get to see the number of votes per each answer as the teacher, and worth noting here a slider to select to show everyone the results. Do you want the students, do you want the participants to see the results of that voting on that poll? So that's a yay or nay there. You can choose to do that or not to do that. And then a great screenshot of an example of a question here at the bottom. There is also a thumbs up or a voting up of questions. So if one student poses a question, other students can see that, click on it, and give it the vote up with the thumbs up icon there. And you as the teacher can know which questions are the most pertinent ones to answer first, which is a great feature there for sure. Another new addition for Enterprise is a dial-in ability in 8 new markets. So if you're based out of North America or the US, these may not be of use to you, but if you have international classes going on or anything like that, or you're watching us here today from a country outside of Canada and the US, they have included now all these countries listed here with the ability to dial into the Google Meet session and connect via audio. So that's fantastic, and that could be useful for the right people in the right circumstance for sure. More information down there at the bottom at the link. This feature is really great. I remember watching kind of an early beta video of Googler trying out this feature that was online, and it's super impressive and amazing. This is the machine learning and all the horsepower that Google has coming to fruition here to filter out background noise. So understanding what's the person's voice who's speaking and what else is background noise over and above and beyond that, and being able to intelligently filter that out. Background noise, doors closing, people rustling papers, dogs barking. If some of you have had that experience working from home lately and things like that, it works extremely well. So this is also an enterprise feature. If you're an enterprise user, then the noise cancellation feature will be there. And I'm going to just get my right window here, jump back over to our Meet. If I were to go back to my settings and take a look at my audio settings, we can get that a little larger for you, see that right here. And I can turn that on or off as needed. And it does work extremely well, which is great. All right, so another biggie, highly requested, obviously, breakout rooms for Google Meet. So this has left beta and is now in general availability for anyone with Enterprise for Education licensing. So again, if your teachers or your initiators of Meet, your moderators have an enterprise license assigned to them, one of the other options, as you maybe saw up in the activities menu, is breakout rooms. I'll show you that real quick here. We'll take a look at it in the activities menu. We've got breakout rooms right here. We can open that. We can specify the number of breakout rooms, and those are just going to appear below as we cycle through that. In a more robust demonstration here, we'd have a bunch of users maybe connected. We would see everyone's names here in the main room. We can choose to have Google just auto shuffle them and automatically kind of balance them evenly across all the breakout rooms, or we can drag and drop student or users' names into specific breakout rooms that we want them to be in when we're ready to go. And even after renaming these breakout rooms, they can be renamed here however you like. We can hit open rooms, and that will start, and that will initiate a pop-up on all the student screens, inviting them to join their breakout room. They accept that, they go over to the breakout room, and at that point, those breakout rooms will run indefinitely until you, as the teacher or creator of them, come back into this interface. And I'm going to make sure I don't put myself into a room inadvertently. Now the rooms are running. They would be happening right now. As the teacher, I can join a particular breakout room and jump into that, see how the students are progressing, offer them some advice, do some teaching, do some monitoring, join another breakout room. I can hop between them. When we're done, we can close rooms. And when we close the breakout rooms, they all end and everyone's prompted to return to the main room or the main call, and everyone would appear back in this main Google Meet. So that's how the breakout rooms work. Pretty straightforward that way. And a great link at the bottom that'll give you more information on that. That's for sure one of the more popular features so far with Enterprise for Education when it comes to using Meet at the point of instruction and with Google Classroom, is being able to divide students up into those working groups and have them work on assignments and projects together. We're going to cover real quick here just a couple non-enterprise changes. So these would be changes that everyone in Google for Education, G Suite for Education, is going to receive in Google Meet, not requiring an enterprise license. And you've seen a lot of these already. Some of these have been around now for maybe even a month or more now. Background blur, so that's an option here under your settings menu where anyone can turn on background blur, and it will identify everything outside of the scope of your head and shoulders and body and blur out that background behind you just enough so there's a lot of privacy there. That's a really great feature. The 49 user tile view is another one. So if we come here and go to change layout, what we'll see now is a option for a forced tile view, and the auto will pick that as appropriate as well. We can go all the way up to a 49 tile grid. Now, this will sometimes be dependent on your monitor or screen resolution. Some people turn this on and wonder why they're only seeing 12 or 16, especially if someone's presenting or screen sharing to everyone. It will depend on how much real estate in your resolution size you have. If you have a gigantic, monstrous resolution going on, you're going to be able to see more of those individual tiles as well. So just with a caveat to understand that it does have an effect on it, depending on your resolution. Jamboard is whiteboard integration. And everyone, I believe, should be seeing that now. Right at the top of the menu here, whiteboard, open a jam. That's going to invoke either starting a brand new Jamboard file from scratch or even going and picking an existing saved Jamboard file or maybe a template that you have queued up from your Google Drive. And once doing that, it's going to start it up. It's going to automatically share that Jamboard with all of the participants of the Google Meet here. So if we had a list of students in here, they're automatically given access to that Jamboard. There's two options. You can give them view access, or you can give them edit access to the Jamboard, and then they'll be able to come in and either just watch what the teacher's demonstrating, or if they have edit, participate in that Jamboard. And if the teacher wants to take this Jamboard and present it back into the Meet, then it's being presented on screen, around to all of the students, whether they're participating or in it or not. And that's how the Jamboard is presented there to the students. A couple really big ones here at the bottom, quick access and present and chat control rolling out to everyone in G Suite for Education. It can be accessed real quick here through this new hosts or host controls icon in the bottom left, or we can go to the full settings menu and see the same thing. Bringing this up gives us these three options. Quick access. So quick access means if I'm the teacher and I decide to turn this off, normally any other student, any other user in our G Suite for Education domain could access this Meet if they've been given or told the nickname or have the unique Meet code URL here. They would just join and they'd pop right in. And that can even be disruptive. Students within your school or district could be coming in here, playing tricks and trying to bomb your meeting. Turning this off requires everyone, even internal people who are not in your Google Classroom class or who were not invited to the Meet through the invitation piece or through a Google Calendar invite. They will all have to request access or do what we call the door knock, where you get the prompt like you just saw and you have to accept or deny that person entry. So that's a really great way to make the Meet even more private for that class and really lock it down and even avoid internal shenanigans, as we would call it, from other students. The other two pieces from that slide mentioned here, whether other participants like your students can present or share their screen or not, and whether they can participate in the chat messages or not. If we turn those off, pretty obvious, but with the chat one, myself as the teacher, I could still send chat messages outwards, and the students could see those. They could click on a link, but they're not going to be able to reply or put in their own chat messages with that lockdown. And while we have it up, there's a great example of how the Jamboard is presented. There is a pop-up, but also here in the chat, this is sent to all the students, all the participants, a link to open up that Jamboard file when we're collaborating on that whiteboard. So a great view there of what that looks like. All right, and we've got kind of that repeated here on the slide, but with a nice screenshot in case you aren't able to easily see the demonstration if you're just looking at this slide deck later. And again, anyone outside of the invitation list, the Google Classroom class, is going to have to knock to gain entry for that. And then again, another screenshot here so that the slide deck speaks for itself without my screen sharing demonstration of the chat and share your screen host controls as well. Another enterprise update here to finish things off that's not Google Meet related, surprise, surprise, with the Windows 10 management that Enterprise for Education gives you. And that was something we covered just back on Tuesday in the session. If you want to go back and watch that recording, we did advanced mobile device management and Windows 10 management on Tuesday. This is a new feature that now allows you to also view a list of all applications installed on those Windows 10 devices. So being able from the admin console, not only to manage updates and work with those Windows 10 machines, but see the locally installed applications that are on those lab machines or those workstations at the back of your classrooms and things like that. So that's a great new update there as well. And let's cover what's next, and then we'll have a few minutes here for the Q&A, and I think we've got some questions flowing already, so we'll get through these here. There is a beta already started, so this will then soon be generally available eventually. Group membership expiration with Enterprise, where through the API, you can configure memberships in a Google group to expire after a certain amount of time. So if you want someone to be in a Google group for a week or for a few months, and you don't want to have to remember yourself to come back and remove them when their LTO or temporary position ends as a temporary teacher, if they're coming in to fill in a leave of absence, this could automatically remove them from that Google group, which would do a lot of things. Could remove them from calendar events, could remove them from drive sharing, from shared drive sharing, from obtaining Google services, like Gmail or Drive. If you're going to turn those on using a Google group, access group, then this could remove them from that group and those services would stop. There's all sorts of ways for sure that this could be used in a lot of creative ways. Similarly, another beta around dynamic Google groups for Enterprise, and this one's really great as well, basing your group membership off of a user attribute from the admin console. So if you're familiar in the admin console, users under the user information card, there's a whole bunch of preset attributes there from Google, as well as the ability to create some custom attributes. Being able to use one of those to dictate whether someone's a member of a Google group or not. If this attribute exists and equals this, then they're in the Google group. And if next week you delete or change that attribute, then they would no longer be in the Google group. So whether that's for specialty programs, spec ed students, and then you're using that group to deliver certain pieces to them in certain ways, temporary supply teachers, anything like that would be a great way to manage that through the attributes in the system. So that's very new as well. Another great piece coming up for originality reports on the horizon. There was a beta that I believe has ended, and we would probably soon be seeing this available, is student matches. So by default, originality reports searches the web. It's searching Google searches, Wikipedia, all that wonderful stuff to look for missed citations, obviously plagiarism, things like that. This student matches ability will look at any previously turned in Google Classroom assignments within the G Suite account, within the domain, within your district. So not only looking outwards, but comparing that student's work to previous students' work that have been turned in as assignments previously. So that's really huge. That's going to make a big, big difference there. And of course, there's a great opportunity to really get deep into that tool and maybe not be paying for other third-party tools that you're spending money on because this is going to be scanning all of those aspects as well. Hand raising is a piece that's definitely on the way. So participants, when ready, when this feature is ready, will be able to raise their hand in the Google Meet session, and that'll be able to be acknowledged by the teacher. And we really see this tying into another upcoming feature, which is students having to request to unmute. So not only do they maybe join the Google Meet already muted, but they can't unmute unless they get approval from the teacher. So imagine that situation where they raise their hand and then the teacher's able to give them permission to unmute. Those two would go hand in hand very nicely. Live captioning in other languages. Live captioning is a fantastic feature. You can turn that on the bottom of any Google Meet for yourself as a participant in the Meet, and any of the audio being spoken or used is transcribed in real time into captions. Additional languages are coming for that. That's going to roll out very soon, which makes that even better and even more amazing of a feature. And I'm impressed with it all the time. It happens so fast. It's so accurate. Like everything else Google does with voice, it's pretty amazing for sure. Just to round up some of the other new Meet features on the horizon here, a participants lobby, so some sort of waiting room or lobby before maybe students are able to even enter the Meet and see and interact with each other. An option to mute everyone upon entry, not just 3 or more people you'll be muted, but everyone will be muted on entry, and then maybe they need to request to unmute. The request to present, so not only like we saw today, turning off their ability to present, but actually needing an approval from the teacher to be able to share their screen and present. And then features to make, upgrade, or change moderators within the Meet. So if you have a co-teacher in there with you, a co-presenter, a guest speaker, being able to make them also a moderator, and then they would have access to, a lot of the features we looked at today, like breakout rooms, managing the polls, turning things off. All those kind of host controls would be available to them as another additional moderator as well. All right, let's hit some questions and hopefully we get you some answers. There's a lot here, so we'll see what we can get through in a few minutes here. Megan's asking, how do breakout rooms work with the attendance report? To my knowledge, Megan, you're going to receive one singular attendance report because everybody has to start in the main room before teacher creates and then invokes breakout rooms. So I imagine your attendance report is just going to be a general report on everybody that entered the main room at any point in time. Will that attendance report, include breakout rooms? Well, they can't just enter a breakout room directly. Even if they show up late, they can't just go straight there. They would have to join the main room first, and the teacher would have to place them in a breakout room. Therefore, they're going to be in the main room attendance. So I'm imagining it's going to maybe just be limited to the main room, I would guess. Anne-Marie's asking, how far in advance can poll questions be created? The day before or just a short time before? I'm not sure what kind of limit is there for that. I know, Anne-Marie, there are some turnover times for your nickname of your Google Meet. It does expire after a certain period of time. I'm not exactly sure what that is offhand. I did some testing the other day, and for sure I could leave it for 20, 30 minutes, come back to that nickname or Meet URL, and my poll questions were there. So there could be a limitation, but I think it's probably fairly long, maybe even in the order of days before those may not be there for you anymore. Devin's asking, not Devin, Devin's posting these questions. There's no name on this one. Can the host force the students back to the main room if they don't click return? That's a great question. We've been testing and trying to learn the ins and outs of breakout rooms so far, and I'm sure they're going to be iterated upon and improved in lots of great ways over the next couple months. Currently, when you end the breakout rooms, there is a prompt to the students that tells them the breakout rooms have ended, and they have to click the button to join the main room. Now, you could sit there and stare at that. For now, it doesn't force the students back to the main room automatically, but we did notice that all the screen sharing, all the presentations, people's webcams all stop once that end breakout room has been sent by the teacher. So even though they're staring at the join main room and not clicking on the button, the functionality of the Meet pretty much ends at that point. So there's not much they can really do there unless they go back. Becky's asking, can we disable breakout rooms if students are abusing them by acting out without teacher supervision? It's your choice as a teacher to turn on breakout rooms during your Meet session. If one particular student isn't behaving well in breakout rooms, it would be your choice as the teacher to not put them into a breakout room and leave them in that main room where you're going to sit there, I guess, and babysit them while the other students do breakout rooms because they're not able to do those due to their behavior. So it'd be really under the teacher's control to not assign them to a breakout room in that situation, I would think. Alina's asking, can you use Jamboard in breakout rooms? That's a great question. I think the answer to that is not right now, but let's do a quick test. I don't think that's anything I've ever tested. So I'm going to put myself into this room 1 breakout room, and I'm going to join it. And as I join it, we're going to see what we have here. Yep. So it's still there. Great. So the Jamboard whiteboards are still available in the breakout rooms. If you want to start one of those up and do some collaboration on that, that definitely works fine. And I'm going to go back and get myself out of this real quick as well. close rooms. That's what the prompt looks like for the teacher. Close all rooms now. And this is similar to what a student would get. These have ended, return to the main call, and everything in the background, video stops, and then they pretty much have no choice other than to click that button and come back. And for sure, I think there's a lot of great questions here. We're pretty much going to have to wrap up. All of the feedback buttons in Google Meet, in Google Classroom, even in the admin console, are there for you to submit feedback to Google. And I know from experience that really works. They do look at that. They look at that on regular intervals as a team of engineers. So if you have feedback, put those in, use those feedback buttons and links that you see throughout the tool set. And let your voice be heard. Tell Google what you want to see, what you want these tools to do. And a lot of where we're at right now today in education, especially, and in enterprise for education, comes from that feedback from schools, from K-12 and higher ed in the last 4 or 5 years, for sure. So that's a fantastic way to get that information back to Google, and we would really suggest that. Again, remember the recordings and the resources are on that tab for the training, the registration site for all these training sessions. You can go there to find those recordings and resources. And we're going to call it there. Thanks very much for attending today. Make sure you check out the registrations for the last sessions that we have left coming up next week. And thanks very much. We'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.